This is Good Cover Wrestling. Welcome to another edition of GKW. I'm Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee. With me, as always, from ESPN West Palm, he is Brian Rowitz. And from ESPN 1000 in Chicago, he's ready. He'll take on Ronda Rousey. I'm sure Brian Rowitz will definitely buy the pay-per-view. He's big into the intergender matches. He is Jonathan Hood.
Well, apparently somebody's got to take on Ronda Rousey because she can't get a good match. I'll get a good match out of her. She's not gonna dump me on my head.
So that's where we start. Not necessarily with Ronda Rousey and Survivor Series, but Survivor Series as a whole. Survivor Series War Games Bloodline comes out on top in their War Games main event battle, but that kind of gets us, The Bloodline, they kind of teased, is Sami going to be loyal? Ultimately, Sami Zayn stays loyal, goes low, low blow to Kevin Owens, and now he's celebrating with Jimmy and Jay and the entire Bloodline. So it just kind of got us thinking, how is this thing going to end? How is this going to end for the Bloodline? Fantasy book, the end of the most dominant faction in recent memory.
Well, I think that all three of us believe this will end with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn coming together. There'll be a tag team, or Sami will go running into the arms of Kevin Owens. The question is, we know that's going to happen, but the question is when. When will that happen? This is the hottest thing in wrestling. And the reason why, bros, this is so interesting to me is because each one of these characters has something going for them. It's not just Sami Zayn being part of the Bloodline and the issues with one of the Usos, what's going on with Jimmy, what's going on with Jay. But what's also interesting about this? It's Solo Sikoa. He stands out in all of this because he stands there like a mountain, just watching all of this. Please be part of the hug, Solo. Be part of the hug. And he's just like, I'm just going to stand here, because he stands out almost a man to himself. Yep. And also the most interesting thing out of this is all of this is happening, and there's Paul Heyman in the back. It's Seinfeld. He's like the fifth most interesting character on the show. It's amazing how that works when Heyman is such a character over the years, but he's just back there holding the belts while all these other characters are out there right in front of your face.
Yeah, I agree. Like, everyone has their own thing. Like, even read stuff on the internet. Like, Solo's the interesting one. He doesn't say a word. And everyone's like, well, maybe Solo's the one who breaks up. Like, maybe he's the one who does it. And that's the best part about the storytelling. But you talk about the when. And the weird thing is just looking at the WWE calendar. So Royal Rumble is end of January, Elimination Chamber, middle of February, and then Mania. So you feel like whenever it happens, it has to be on a premium live event. You want to get as many eyes as possible, make it a big deal. To me, Elimination Chamber sort of makes sense. It's in Montreal, and we know how much they love their Canadians and KO and Sami Zayn. Somehow the two of them at the end of Elimination Chamber, like, battling it out and then hugging or something like that feels like a great chance to sort of work in that crowd and give Montreal something to be happy about, because sometimes, the WWE sort of books against that.
What are you talking about? Is there something historically that they did in Montreal? Is there? I don't know what you're talking about.
Hypothetically speaking.
Brett, Scrooge, Brett. You can look in the mirror. What?
So
mirror.
So part of this is also like however you decide to take these belts off of Roman Reigns is, I'm guessing USA, Fox, Hunter eventually want to split the championships up again, so you have a SmackDown champion and you have a Raw champion. So if Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are coming together, and let's say Dwayne doesn't want to do WrestleMania because, well, the last time he actually wrestled a match, it probably ended up costing him some money because he tore a pec against John Cena a decade ago. What if there's like a handicap match where, they both simultaneously pin Roman Reigns, because it takes more than one. Like, the way they've booked Roman, it's going to take more than one simultaneously pin him, and that's how they end up split chips.
That sounds like a good role.
One gets one, yes. One gets the other.
Good.
Yes.
Sounds like a good role.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, I think overall, like, the way you look at, like, the ending of it, like, I obviously have been very vocal. I think it ends with Sami being the champion. Like, I think At this point, there's enough steam behind it. The Undertaker has come out and said what a great character Sami Zayn is right now. Like, what else do you need to hear? But like, I think there's enough there to like do something. And you also have to factor in the Rumble. Like, I still think Mania is Roman defending the title on both nights. I think it's defend it Saturday, defend it, and then you do something off of that.
Yeah, because the problem is, part of the biggest part, like Jay Hood said, is when do you end it? Because you want to hit that sweet spot where it starts to wind down. And it seemed like without Sami Zayn inserting into the bloodline and becoming the character that he's become and getting Roman Reigns and the Usos and trying to break Solo Sikoa on a weekly basis like he's an SNL character when he's out there cutting promos. Like that has injected a new life. It's taken a new direction. And that's how you're able, like when you think about the longer range in WWE, like CM Punk, when he was the champion for as long as he was, there was a heel turn in the middle of that. Like he was, it just, you have to keep things fresh and new in order to stay on top the way the bloodline has. And with Sami Zayn, it is still a breath of fresh air. It's still incredibly entertaining. And I don't think you want to cut that off too early. It's always that tough thing when you have a champion for this long is, okay, how do we end this thing? And how do we make sure we don't end it too soon? Because the bloodline, again, because Sami, he's selling honorary Uce shirts. Now he's wearing a Feeling Uce t-shirt. Like they're selling merch. They're getting good ratings. They're stealing every show. So you don't want to end that too early. It's about finding that sweet spot of not hanging on too long and yet not cutting it off too soon.
Now, see, that's a great point. And you could be able to say, okay, we'll cut this off at the Rumble. We'll cut this off at WrestleMania because WrestleMania, everything resets. But you see, if you had a strong number 2 or number 3 or number 4 storyline, then you could be able to say, okay, we'll switch this at WrestleMania and just go into this program. But the one thing, and there's a number of things that we have an issue with Triple H's regime, but one of them through the first, almost to 150 days of his reign, something like that, getting close to 200 days, is that one of the things he has not done is stack up a roster of contenders for Roman Reigns championship, which we'll get into in a little bit. But as far as storylines, that's the hottest storyline. If you disassemble this storyline, then what's next? Like, Dominic and Rhea Ripley coming to your Thanksgiving and tearing up Rey Mysterio? What is it, like Miz and Dexter Lumis?
Ray shouldn't have put his Christmas tree up before Thanksgiving. I don't know what he was thinking. Clearly, when you do that, your son and his presumable girlfriend are going to come and kick the crap out of you.
Hold on, honey. Someone's at the door. Let me put my mask on. Yellow. Who does that? Rey Mysterio does that. But that's what it comes down to. So it's a great point, Gabe, because you could do it, but then if you do it, say WrestleMania, this is everything blows up. Okay, so then what's next? So it's Sami around the loop against the Bloodline, Sami and Kevin against the Bloodline, the 2-man power trip against the Bloodline. Like, there's got to be something more to it than that, isn't it?
Well, I agree with the fact that, like, there's not a secondary storyline. Like, the main storylines all center around the Bloodline right now. I'm of the belief that Obvious works, and it seems like Obvious is Sami being the one to get turned on or break away. Is there a chance they go another route? Like, is it Solo and KO? Is it one of the Usos and KO, and they go that route? And maybe, I mean, Gabe, you mentioned the Punk heel turn. Could it be a Bloodline face turn? Like Solo and one of the Usos break away, and how dare they do this to Sami? Roman defends Sami, and they go that route. And it's a face Bloodline moving forward.
Yeah, I just don't see them breaking up the Usos at this point. So that's where Solo, again, with his name literally being Solo, like he could be the one that breaks off. And I mean, he's a badass enough character where I think you could pull some off. Now, it would take some heating up because right now he's just kind of the, less the muscle, I guess, where he just kind of stands around looking tough and he'll wrestle every once in a while, but keep kind of heating him up. Maybe give him a big match against a Drew McIntyre, have him beat a Drew McIntyre, somebody like that, that'll heat him up, that if he's the one who ends up turning him on the Bloodline, that he's the one who maybe takes the belt off of Roman Reigns. But that's the problem right now because, and again, we'll get into this with Roman, like it seems like it has to be Sami or KO. This is what the story is revolving around. And like those two guys taking the undisputed tag team belts off the Usos just doesn't feel like it's enough. It feels like, well, if you're going to end the bloodline, you can't go for the underling. You got to go for the head of the monster, which is, of course, the head of the table.
I know it's a lazy comparison, but you got to give. I agree that you got to give Solo Sikoa some matches here to find, because yes, it looks like an imposing figure, but the NXT matches, I didn't watch him, so I don't know how bad he is. I did see him in some matches on the main roster. It's a lazy comparison, but he has the ability to be like the next Samoa Joe when Joe was really good, like in the Indies at Ring of Honor, right? You think he's good now because he's got dual championships in AEW. Solo Sikoa could be that one strong Samoan up-and-coming star that is an ass kicker. Not saying that Roman Reigns isn't. I'm just saying that Solo Sikoa, just from the package that we're seeing, could be that guy.
And I think to that point, like, we don't really know what he can do on the mic. Like, you pair him with KO, and it's KO and Solo versus the Usos at Mania. There's your mouthpiece. Like, let KO do all the heavy lifting on the mic, and all of a sudden you don't need to worry about that with Solo. But then there still doesn't answer, like, what you're doing moving forward. Like, they're in a good spot right now. It's working. It's continuing to get over, which is the crazy part, because it's been going for a while. And the way pro wrestling fans are, usually you get to this point, it's like, all right, we're tired of this. We're tuning it out. They're getting more and more over. Like, that's the most impressive part about the Bloodline right now.
Yeah, because they continue to add pieces. Adding Solo made a ton of sense. Adding Sami Zayn made 0 sense, and it has somehow worked unbelievably well. Like, it doesn't make any sense that Sami Zayn, the red-haired guy from Montreal, French-Canadian, is the guy that is joining the Samoan bloodline. It shouldn't be working, and yet because Sami Zayn is that good, it is somehow working.
Yeah, there's no way they projected a Sami Uso chant becoming a thing.
Let me tell you something, bro. We're going to cut this off right now. We're going to cut this off right. This whole Sami Zayn, because you keep trying to, you keep putting it on Twitter.
He hits the Superman punch. Oh, yeah. Imagine LA. Woo!
Yeah, you know what? You keep putting this on Twitter. You keep bringing it up in the show. Let me just tell you something. Now, I'll make the case. Sami Zayn's so over that he doesn't need the championship. I'll do that too, right? But Sami Zayn is the one that takes the pinfall. Sami Zayn is the one that's supposed to be the weakest of the weak links in this bloodline. Stop trying to put a strap on him. He's good, but he ain't that good.
You can easily book it to where, like, hey, I'm going to enter Elimination Chamber. I'm going to make sure KO doesn't win and take your title. Sami accidentally wins. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe I do want to win the title. Maybe all of a sudden he doesn't go down with the finger point. He comes down with the Superman punch. It's right there for you. You're welcome, Hunter.
Nothing like a finish, like a haluva kick to get over. I mean, it worked in ROH, but none of this nonsense here. No, he's so good. He doesn't need a championship. He's he's one of the number one baby face in the company. Can I go that far right now? Okay, he's over.
I think that's
he's
fair.
selling merch. He's got the whole handshake thing going. He's got the whole handshake.
That is really impressive.
It's smooth. It is smooth.
Yeah, it's fine. It's hilarious though. That's why the Usos. That's why they keep laughing. I mean, under Vince, this would have stopped. All right, stop the laughing.
Yeah.
But like every vignette, every promo, they're like, this guy, he's doing the whole handshake thing. And they can't, all three of them, it's Solo, it's Jimmy and Jay. They're all laughing. Even Roman.
Well, no, he broke Roman when he called Logan Paul the ultimate number 2 on the bottom of the Tribal Chief's shoe. You know, when he did the whole "we the ones, you the two, my dog," and like Roman lost it. Like Roman couldn't keep it together.
I mean, this would have been cleaned up in post. You would never see this online. They would have said, get the laughter out of there. Like Vince would have. That's the difference, though. Triple H is allowing this to happen because it's live and it's real. That they love this guy so much that they're laughing through what's supposed to be serious promos. Yep. Under Vince, this would have never happened. He would have fined them for laughing. It would have been something like that. I'm serious.
So trying to fantasy book the end of the bloodline is just interesting because we don't know when it's going to happen. But it also helps us transition into the 3 count because fantasy booking the end of the bloodline means, okay, who's Roman going to wrestle? We like to do a thing called the 3 count here, the other top 3 stories in the world of professional wrestling. And Brian, what do we have this week at number 1?
Yeah, but it's an easy transition. We saw Roman Reigns and Survivor Series on the victorious team, another premium live event where he didn't defend the title. So who is next to challenge Roman for those titles?
It kind of seems like it's got to be KO, one who took the low blow, took the fall because they teamed up on him at the end of Survivor Series, and he seems to be the one who is recalling his past with Roman, keeps saying he wants another shot at Roman more than everybody else, than the Brawling Brutes, than Drew McIntyre. It seems like he's the one who mostly wants another shot at Roman Reigns. So my guess is KO, because that makes the most sense.
Yeah, this is not part of the 3 count. It's an extension from the previous segment. It's the same thing. Because let's just continue on, right? Because it sounds like KO. KO was there in the ramp talking to the bloodline, talking to Sammy. I don't want to be your friend. You know, you understand you're really not their blood, all that stuff. So that to me is a connection of Kevin Owens directly talking to Sammy, ultimately talking to Roman Reigns. You're not part of that family. You're not their blood. I don't need to be your friend anymore. That tells me that at the Rumble, I expect to see Kevin Owens against Roman Reigns. But see, here's the problem. It's not about the dual belts for me, guys. It's about, again, under the Triple H regime, you can't stack for me the serious contenders for the championships. And also, this has turned into Dusty Rhodes versus the Horsemen. It's like Dusty's trying to win Ric Flair's championship, right, in the 80s. But he can't get past Tully and Arn and Barry Windham and J.J. Dillon because every match is a disqualification. He's trying to beat Flair for the championship and can't. This is the same thing for anybody in the WWE. You're trying to get Roman, but you got to get past the Usos. You got to get past Solo Sikoa. You got to get past Heyman. You got to get past, Sami Zayn. So it's going to be very difficult for anybody to get there. They have built this fence around Roman where it's never going to be one-on-one. And so that, along with not being able to have serious contenders, we're all waiting for Cody to get healthy. That's not for the Rumble. Is that even for WrestleMania? But again, my point is that over these 100+ days, can you line up for me the 5 serious contenders for Roman's championship? We're talking about trying to get the championships off of him, but you can't give me like for sure that guy's going to beat Roman Reigns, especially
and it's
all the people around him.
Some of it's petered out because it seemed like Karrion Kross was going to be on that list. Not that he was going to win the championships, but right when Karrion Kross came back to WWE, it seemed like he was going to be a challenger for Roman Reigns. He is now faded so far to the back of SmackDown. He's a non-factor, and he seemed 3-4 months ago like a sure bet to be a challenger at some point.
Well, that's the thing. Like when we started this show, one of the issues we had with Vince is that there isn't that obvious contender. There isn't someone that you're saying, okay, can't wait to see them win the title. They've done KO already. And that's why, yes, he has the past to call back on. But I agree with you, Jay Hood. There isn't anyone out there. And I wonder how much of it is, he's got 2 belts, we can't do anything else, versus they don't have him defend the belt. It is so few and far between when he defends it. I looked it up today. Do you guys want to guess how many times since Mania, when he became undisputed champion, has Roman defended the titles on TV, on televised non-house shows since Mania, which was April 3rd?
Okay, so he doesn't do it on Raw or SmackDown, if at all. So I will say 3.
Okay, what do you got?
Is it only 1? No, he did it twice. I'm going to say 2. Logan Paul and Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam.
4. So Logan Paul, Brock. You also had the Drew match at Clash of the Castle.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
the SmackDown match versus Riddle. So 4 times since April. 4 times in 8 months of wrestling. That sort of takes away from it also because you're not building up to hey, this guy's had so many chances. I think part of it is that. And yes, Triple H has gotten sort of a pass because, hey, he's not Vince. That's the best thing he has going for him. But this needs to be held against him because there isn't that serious contender out there right now.
You got to defend the strap every 30 days, brother.
Yes.
Brother.
Does this mean that WWE is going to have a Royal Rumble problem?
If it's not Cody, then yes.
Because
if Cody's not healthy, then is it Rollins?
Well, is the winner of the Rumble even going to get a chance? The way they did, and the reason why I asked this is because Money in the Bank, they decided to have Theory cash in. In the match, the triple threat at Survivor Series was fun, but I don't understand why you're cashing in for the U.S. Championship to begin with. Then you lose it, but then you win it, and it just the whole thing with Theory just is baffling, and it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But he didn't cash in on one of the main on the big championship, the main championship. That makes 0 sense. So does that mean we potentially see the winner of the Rumble challenge Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship?
Oh, no. Wait a minute. Okay. So this is Roman Reigns against Gunther at Elimination Chamber for the championship.
How do they book that match though? Like, how do they book the Chamber? Like, what's at stake there?
Oh, well, I mean, that's for a future title match down the line.
I
don't know. I don't. But listen, I want to see. We're talking about contenders, right? And I know Gunther is the heavyweight champion of SmackDown because the Intercontinental Championship hasn't meant something like this in decades, right? So I'm happy for Gunther. I still want to see Roman Gunther, but I guess if Roman's pissed at Kevin Owens for a potato to the ear at Survivor Series, think about if he takes on Gunther, a big time like a chop to the chest. Roman will go back to the back like, I'm not doing this, brother. I'm not doing this. What the F is going on? I'm not doing this. I mean, if you're mad at Kevin Owens, you'll definitely be mad at Gunther because he's not going to miss on that chop. So we're waiting for Cody, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
and we're assuming Hunter feels the same way about Cody as Vince did. Like that has to be thrown out there also.
He's gonna get healthy to come back to the mid card. Wait a minute.
Not his decision. Like
that's true. That's not Triple H's call. That was Vince's call.
Right.
Yeah.
Cody for Regal trade. Who says no?
Huh.
Oh man. I mean that's some politics right there. But see, there's a conundrum, right? Kevin seems the closest to a matchup against Roman. Mm-hmm. But we don't believe that any of this roster can beat Roman Reigns, especially with the fence of talent around Roman. Even when we mentioned a few months ago, well, when Cody's healthy, it's going to be Cody Roman if The Rock's not ready. Does that seem believable to you? Cody Rhodes? AEW's Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns when Brock couldn't do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to what we talked about a week ago with War Games. Without that build-up, like, War Games would have been a great chance to build up that next person. Like, someone pins Roman in War Games, like, all of a sudden you have your story right there.
There you go.
But no one on that other team was someone like, oh, yeah, maybe, like, you know, Pete Dunne.
Butch could have pinned him.
Like, what were they doing? Like, there's no one there that you're like, okay, maybe this is it. And, like, that's the bad booking there.
Ridge Holland snaps him with his suspenders, and then Butch goes for the pin. No? You guys are into that?
I lose to the guy that crippled Big E? No way. This is when you're missing, this is fancy booking, this is when you're missing the baby face general manager that says, you know, Roman, you are the undisputed champion, but you're the champion of Raw and SmackDown. As a matter of fact, you have to defend these championships. As a matter of fact, you had to defend them both at WrestleMania, as Bro has just said. And so he drops one of them. That's the way. That's the only way out of this, unless the undisputed championship is always just going to be the champion of Raw and SmackDown, just combined to one championship, not two belts, one.
I don't know. I feel like each show needs their champ. I think like Mania is the easy thing. You have like that's the bloodline breakup on Saturday. Someone cost Roman one of the belts on Saturday. Then Sunday he takes on The Rock. He doesn't lose that match. And then you're split up and you do it that way.
I mean, it's easy. And that's the thing. But that's the one that makes the most sense to me is having him defend it, you know, one on one night, one on the other. But they haven't treated it like that. They haven't done that once yet where it's like, oh, it's just for this one. Where, again, in the past, that's what they've done. When Becky Lynch was Becky Two Belts, and she won a match SmackDown, whatever that next pay-per-view was, she lost one of the belts because she had two matches the following pay-per-view or premium live event, excuse me, where, you know, that's how they treated that. They have treated this as a completely different thing. And again, it's just kind of put this in this corner of, okay, who is it? Is this, it just leaves a lot of questions and there aren't a lot of answers right now. As good of a job as Triple H has done, he still has not found a way or any sort of path to book out of the corner that Vince put him in at WrestleMania.
Boy, we are regressing with two champions at the top of the card. You know, MJF's not going out there, you know, every week defending the championship. He'll do promos. We already told you he's not going to be out there wrestling. And actually, he's special where he doesn't have to wrestle every week. But the same thing with Roman Reigns. So the top of the card as far as championships, never been colder. because for a generation before this one, it's like, oh, we see Cena every single week and he's out there, he's defending the U.S. title, and every pay-per-view is Big Match John, blah, 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 right? Here we go in 2022. You got two companies in which you see the world champion speak a lot, but they don't wrestle a lot. That's where we are today.
And I get it I guess we can transition to that, I guess. What do we have? Yeah. This was going to be 3, but we'll transition into it number 2 because we seem to be actually getting everything, weaving everything together this week here on GKW. But MJF.
Well, actually, I have a different number 2. Like, we can get to MJF, but like a name we didn't mention, Bray Wyatt. So number 2, Bray's been back since October. We sort of see where he's going. Fill in the blank here. Bray Wyatt's return so far has been blank.
Meh.
Nondescript.
Meh.
All right, let's get to number 3.
None of us mentioned him. None of him said, like, hey, maybe Bray beats Roman. Like, that never came up just now. Like,
no, he's messed around with LA Knight. Like, you can't heat Bray up that quickly. Like, again, by at the pace in which they're telling the Bray Wyatt story, maybe Bray's ready to wrestle by next year's Survivor Series. Like, maybe. Like, they are telling this at such a snail's bleeping pace. Like, what are we doing? Like, come on. Like, it just, he goes out there, gives a rambling promo every week. We get Uncle Howdy up on the screen, and like, it's just, okay, what are we doing? Like, and I was excited for Bray to be back. Like,
well,
what the hell, man?
Well, I guess, you sit down and all the question marks, when's Bray coming back? When's Bray coming back? And Bray says, okay, I just had my baby with JoJo, the ring announcer, and everything's fine. And then I feel like I'm in a good headspace. I feel healthy. I'm going to come back to the WWE. Okay, great. Even though Impact Wrestling offered him a deal. How about that? What would that look like? It wouldn't look like anything.
I don't know.
No one would see it, right? Exactly. So think about it. Like, you have your yellow pad of thoughts, right? You're like, all right, Bray, Triple H and management sits down. It's like, all right, Bray, so you're going to come back to WWE. And so what would you like to do? I don't know, man. I was thinking about LA Knight. Like, I don't think that was in the plans, right? Of all the things, I don't think it was like, man, I was thinking about that LA Knight. No.
That's not an insult. The fact of life.
I will say the only positive now about him being back is we don't just scan QR codes or run HTML on websites anymore. Like, it's all just there. What you do with it is up to you now. But yeah, like, it's gone nowhere. And like, apparently Triple H is planning a pitch black match for LA Knight and Bray at the Rumble, whatever that means.
Is that supposed to be a lights out match? But they just call it something different.
Is that one of those pre-match deals, cinematic matches?
Ooh.
I guess, but I thought we were away from that. That came to be because there were no people there. Like, people want to see Bray wrestle. Like, we don't need to hide Bray in the ring.
Okay, but I'm confused about the character. He's trying to tell us. He's pretty much Wyndham Rotunda trying to tell you, like, man, I've gone through a lot right now, man. I went through a lot in my life. You could do that once when you return, but if you're coming out there every week crying about your life and how I've got these demons and you see them on the screen, but you don't see them in the ring, like, some of this stuff is getting some boos here and there. I don't know if you listen very closely. There's some, like, either indifference or boos with this. They love to see him because that way the lights are out. You can turn on your phone and turn the camera. That's fine. But I think this slow build is leading towards something, but it's not to a title match. The first 2 times he had the championship, he didn't need them.
No.
Bray Wyatt was over. He didn't need the championship. Because he's great on the mic, great promo, great character. So I don't know what the ideas were when he first came back. Like, what do you want to do? Like, you want to do something different? Well, I got this Uncle Howdy thing, man. And then I've got, I was thinking this LA Knight dude would be really great to start things. All right, then what?
Well, it seems like Alexa, whatever's going to be going forward, it seems like Alexa's going to be a part of it. So on Raw, when she was standing there in the background, TV behind her kind of flashed that upside down hornet thing. So it seems like she is going to be realigned with Bray Wyatt and whatever version of the Fiend is going to be coming back.
So then what? What's next after that? Like, we've seen her in that character before. Then what?
Yeah. I mean, could Cena be down the line? We've talked about what he's going to do at Mania. Like, they had a great cinematic match. Like, could that be one of the demons he's trying to exercise, like taking on Cena at Mania?
We saw that already.
We saw a cinematic match. Put him in the ring, and it'll be different.
No, and actually,
No?
the best thing part about that is that Cena turned heel for like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
At
that
the
was pretty
NWO.
good.
That was badass. I'm like, hell yeah! You got Cena with the NWO shirt, like, yeah, that's what we've been waiting for like 20 years. Do it. So he got a chance to live his dream as a heel. He wanted to be a heel so bad. So funny, like 5 years into, people forget he started as a heel. Remember that program with The Undertaker? People forget about that. The whole rapping thing with the jerseys. And I think there was one green light that Vince gave him, like, yeah, we're going to turn you. He couldn't run down to creative fast enough. He was just like, all right, we're going to switch this music up and we're going to do that. And Vince like, nah, the merch is too good. Yeah. But because he was disappointed because he was like, I'm about to be a heel. You know, heels have more fun. You know, and just like, and he was like, he had the music ready. He had the gear ready. Like, here's what we're going to do next week. Like, we're not going to do that. He was this close to being a heel.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt has been, I think we all agree, it's been underwhelming. Yep. It's been very underwhelming to this point. And I just don't know where they're going with it. And it's the longer they take to tell the story, and I want to give latitude because it's Bray, and Bray has done some great long-term storytelling. You mentioned the Cena stuff. It's been fantastic. But when he comes out on Friday nights and I'm watching, like, I kind of lose interest. Like, that's when, I pull out my phone and I'm like, okay, what else is going on? Oh, look at that game's on right now. And like, I just kind of, because the promos are long and rambling and seem rather pointless to this point.
See, I agree, and like, it's disappointing to feel that way because we all were so excited. Like, J-Hood, I think it's your point when you talk about AEW, where so many of these guys and girls go unchecked, and then you get into some trouble because, like, oh, well, no one was checking this, or you have the same spots in different matches. I wonder if this is just Bray unchecked, where it's like, maybe he needs a little control, like someone needs to pull in a little bit, where we don't need Vince to do it, but like something in between, because right now this isn't connecting right now.
I'll also point one other thing out about Bray. What might be the disconnect for all of us is that it's solo Bray.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing him as an ensemble, part of like two people behind him. Alexa Bliss, as you mentioned, might be part of this as well. Solo Bray. I mean, he's over. It's just that there was always more to Bray than just him speaking on the mic. There was a purpose. I'm going after this LA Knight. I'm going after this person. I want this championship, or I have this purpose. The promos are excellent. Don't get me wrong. The point is, like, where are you going with it next? I'm not looking to fast forward through it. I just want to know, like, after mid-card LA Knight, then what else are you going after? Like Austin Theory, you crossing over? Is there something on SmackDown on a light roster that you're going after? You're going after the Bloodline? Like, I don't know the answer to that.
And I want to see matches. Like, Gunther versus Bray is something I can get behind from a wrestling standpoint.
Somebody's bleeding. Somebody's going to bleed the hard way.
That can main event my SmackDown any night.
Yes.
I have no problem. I mean, that could be harmful to someone's health. Probably Bray Wyatt.
It's so, again, I want to give it leniency, but I think they just need to pick it up just a little bit because, again, I just don't need any more. I don't need LA Knight buried underneath whatever you can find in the back. I don't need that again this Friday.
I know it sounds like we're shitting on LA Knight. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that for someone with the gravitas of Bray Wyatt over the years in WWE, for him to come in with this as his first program is a little bit underwhelming. LA Knight by himself, breaking away from that terrible Vince gimmick that he had. He's a terrific wrestler, solid veteran. We just didn't expect that this would be the first thing.
No, and to me, it doesn't allow. The other disappointing part about that is I would have loved to see LA kind of grow and see what he can do. And this doesn't necessarily bury him, but it's not going to put him in the best light. He ain't coming over the top of Bray Wyatt. He's not coming out on top of that at the end.
Yeah.
That's not an insult, LA. It's just a fact of life.
It is a fact of life. Ladies and gentlemen, close your eyes when you listen to LA Knight. Tell me you don't hear Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock at the same time. That's how he sounds. Like it's bizarre. He studied them so much. It's amazing how much his cadence is like The Rock. It's crazy.
And how much the cadence is The Rock. The voice is Stone Cold, and it's very freaky. It's very freaky. You pointed that out a couple weeks ago, and I can't unhear it now. Like the bell's been rung, and I can't unring it for LA Knight.
He was on with Chris Van Vliet, and he was like, "I can't help that I talk like this." Yeah, and it's just like, is that your natural voice? Even if it's not, it's just entertaining. It's just weird, and people that missed the '90s, early 2000s, it's all in one package in LA Knight.
We talked about it a little bit earlier. Let's move on to number 3.
Last night on Dynamite, MJF with his first promo as AEW World Champion, and it ended with him turning on William Regal. So, guys, will MJF actually get booed during his world title run?
He got booed last night. You hit William Regal from behind with William Regal's own brass knucks. Like, they are going to do. It's very obvious to me that they are going to do whatever they can to try to prevent him from being the cool heel who gets cheered. And they want him to be that heel who's going to be doing dastardly things. They remade the belts to make, the way he wants it to look. He's not going to be wrestling. They're doing all these things to try to set him up to be booed. Now, I don't know if it works, but it seems that that's what Tony Khan wants to do. Try to do everything in his power that he can in order to get MJF booed.
Yeah, including mentioning the WWE again.
Yeah.
God almighty, man. Don't you have anything? Can't you do something if you're Tony Khan? Stop being an enabler. You're just going to have him bring up Triple H's name on the promo again. I mean, I know that the AEW audience and the whole wrestling audience is in on this, but just like he's doing anything he can. But see, you know what's funny about society, guys? It's like, you take a look at social media, right? And you could be a heel on social media. You could say anything. You could be a heel on social media. But MJF can't be a heel in AEW to the fans. They'll boo, but they still love it, though. Yeah. Isn't that weird? Like, you can say the most salacious, outrageous things about the people in Indianapolis. And they're just like, yeah, we are slobs. Yeah, right. We are the worst, right? Because
I am a piece of shit. Yeah, tell me more.
yes, please, give me more. Like, it's weird. On social media, you could tweet something totally innocuous about something. Oh, I love the sun. Oh, the sun, F the sun, like all that, right? But then for MJF, he's saying stuff, tweeting stuff. He's telling you that he's a heel. Everywhere I hear, whatever organization he goes to, I remember this at MLW, same thing now in AEW. They said, like, this is who he really is. Like, walks around and just is a bad guy to people, but the fans love it. So will he? So I guess the question I have, bro, is, in 2022, can you really be a heel, a true heel? Has anyone ever seen it? I've seen it. I know what a real heel looks like. Can MJF be the true heel he wants to be? He wants to be Buddy Rogers. That's what he wants to be.
But that's the thing. To your point, I don't think it's the same heel. Like, you see on Twitter all the time with like anniversary stuff. Like, when you see NWO highlights come up and the ring is littered in garbage, or today was the anniversary of that old lady trying to slap Hogan. Like, that's not going to happen with MJF. You're not going to have the whole arena like wanting to slash his tires and him having to sneak out the back door. That's not going to happen in 2022, to where you might get a moment that I agree with you, Gabe. They booed when he hit Regal last night, but then 2 minutes later, they're like, oh, like, yay, MJF, like, he's coming through the crowd. Let me get a selfie with him. So I think we just sort of have to manage expectations of what a heel is, because he is the top heel probably in all of wrestling, but what does that look like in 2022?
So you think you would categorize Roman as a face?
No, but I don't think Roman gets that heat.
Well, nobody does. Nobody
like Roman
does.
cheats, that makes him a heel. Like, what else makes him a heel?
The acknowledge me stuff.
But everyone does it. Like, the whole crowd does it with him. It's a catchphrase to play along with.
It's actually Mick Foley in reverse. Omaha, acknowledge me.
Right.
Hey, it's so great to be here in Oklahoma, in Omaha.
Right.
It's the same. It's Mick Foley in reverse.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Kansas City, acknowledge me. Oh, that you talking about us in our city? Yeah, I'll acknowledge you. Yeah. But it's the same thing that Mick Foley was doing, except so we are in the era again of the cool heel.
Mm-hmm.
The bloodline of cool heels, Gabe.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah.
That doesn't make you a heel, though. Right? It doesn't make you a heel. Like these guys here, everybody wants the merch. Who wears merch of bad guys? I do. I'm a heel on the show. I mean, but again, the point is though, is that again, can you get real heat where people could say, man, I hate when this guy's going. Now, here's real heat on this show. Both of you hate Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's like
Rampage Friday once again on TV.
But again, that's the X-Pac go away heat.
Yeah.
Like that's not the good heat. Like I legitimately will turn my television. I don't need to see Jeff Jarrett. Like I don't need to see him in 2022. I really do not need to see him break his 20,000th guitar on somebody on Rampage on Friday. Just don't need to see it. Don't need it.
Let's see. AAA Triple Mania. Let's see. GCW 2 shows. WrestleMania as a referee. Ric Flair's last match. AEW.
I mean, good for him. He's getting the work in and people are paying him. Like, good for you, Jeff. I just don't need to see it anymore, pal.
When we do our year-end awards in a few weeks, he is Comeback Wrestler of the Year. He's been in 5 different shows. 5 different shows. He's 52. He's Jeff Jarrett. It's unbelievable.
Go away.
But this whole MJF thing, guys, it's about, the question is, will he actually get booed? He was booed because of what happened with Regal. And that's a whole different kettle of fish too. Like, how did that happen? That whole thing is just stupid. I don't understand, especially if Regal's leaving. I don't understand that whole deal. So he gets heat, so he's going to be by himself. Okay. So, but people still will respect him when he comes out to speak again. He's still going to get cheers, even though he disses the fans.
And I think the other issue is, like, when you have a top heel, you need that top face. AEW gets guys over, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, why don't we step back a little bit? And, like, the fact that if someone might get all the way up there, then they're going to pull them away. You're going to lose some of that, not heat, whatever the opposite of heat is, like that love for the face. Like, they're going to book that wrong to where him versus Ricky Starks in a few weeks. Like, the fans will be behind Starks in the match, even though they know who's going to win. But then the next week, like, they're cheering for MJF again.
See?
Yeah, it's not going to be consistent boos. Like the only person, but even that, and he's not a cool heel because I don't think anybody's out there buying "Hello, my balls are massive" T-shirts from the Miz. But it's like the Miz is like what a heel looks like in 2022.
Yeah.
Like nobody's cheering. Yeah, and it might be, but nobody's cheering for the Miz. Like everybody knows he's the bad guy in every feud that's going to be in. Like he's not getting cheered. Like Dexter Lumis is a stalker, and he was the babyface against Miz.
Right. And I hope to God that that's the end of that from Monday Night Raw. And by the way,
hopefully,
here's
Johnny Wrestling something else, please, for the love of all things holy.
Yeah.
That's another thing we give Triple H a pass on. Like, if this was Vince booking Johnny, we'd be so upset right now.
That's true. That's true. Only because we know that Triple H is going to take care of Johnny.
Right.
He'll take care of Johnny. Johnny will be in better programs than this. He's just like, hey, could you get through this? Can you help us get through this so we could end this? But I look at, it's interesting you mentioned the Miz because you remember the insult. What was it, a year ago? Where it's like MJF is like, was it Miz Light? Who said that? CM Punk.
CM Punk
said that he was like at the, and so that's an insult because Miz is either he does get booed or there's indifference. That match we saw on Raw, that was indifference. Like people weren't behind Dexter Lumis. They weren't behind Miz. They were just trying to get this over with. That crowd did not want to see that in Norfolk. They were not interested at all. So I just think the MJF thing is like he will get booed. If you notice that promo he had right before he hit Regal, he's like, I know some of you are behind me. Some of you are supporting me, but you guys are going to turn on me. And still people were giving him some light applause, some boos here and there. It's going to be a mixed reaction. But he wants the heat. He wants nuclear heat. He wants someone to get a knife, just like in the old days, and try to go after him. That's just never going to happen in 2022.
No. So it's just a matter of figuring it out. Because again, if you're the cool heel that, yeah, you get some boos out of respect for being a heel with the smart wrestling crowd, which, again, MJF is going to get some of that when he insults the town. But ultimately, he's getting cheered. Hell, he was getting cheered over Jon Moxley just a couple of weeks ago during that championship match. And
Well,
Mox
it'll be
is
funny also last night is the next step to him and Brian doesn't play that like white face baby face. So like what's that gonna be like? That dynamic? Like Brian comes out of the heel locker room. Like that's just sort of his thing. So like it'll be interesting to see how like that dynamic will be for the next month or so.
The white meat baby face.
Yes, what I say.
Is it what you said? White face baby face. Be
yeah.
careful.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay.
You can't. I don't think that's allowed. I don't
no.
think
In fact, it's not. In fact, it's not. That Booker T. That is what would end AEW. That's how AEW goes out of business. If indeed they send somebody out in whiteface, that's how that ends.
Good night, guys.
Oh, suck it, Vic. Oh, white face. Oh, I don't think that would be a good idea. No.
Good book in there.
Just try to help.
What do we have in news and notes this week, Brian?
All right, we talked about William Regal. Multiple reports out about his future in AEW. Mike Johnson of PW Insider says, quote, all signs that William Regal will be WWE bound shortly. Sean Ross Sapp last night tweeted that Regal's deal is up at the end of this month.
Well, okay, let's talk about this, Gabe. Why wouldn't AEW keep Regal around in the back?
Yeah, seems like, I don't know. It seems like a no-brainer that you would keep. I mean, everybody agreed that it was a mistake that WWE let go of William Regal to begin with. I think everybody agreed that was a mistake. And clearly, he's a Hunter guy at this point. Like, Hunter, I think, would obviously, now that he's in charge of things, clearly wants to bring him back. But if I'm AEW, no, I'm not letting go of William Regal. This dude is a brilliant professional wrestling mind. He has been a part of the major storylines that you've been telling since he arrived, put together a stable of wrestlers featuring some of your most popular guys, including Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley, turned on that group to now be in your world championship storyline, and then just got taken out by the world champ, and that's how he's going to go away? Like, so the setup for potentially Bryan Danielson versus MJF is defending the honor of somebody who's leaving your company and going to the competitor. What?
And you have to be an insider to know that, because if you're not, then it's kind of like, well, where did Regal go? Because it's not like Regal's going to be on NXT TV. Well, maybe he will be screaming out War Games again. I don't know.
Well, Triple H tweeted that this weekend. He's like, it wouldn't be the same. He tweeted out the Regal saying War Games.
Oh, okay. So this was poorly booked. Another issue with Tony Khan. Poorly booked. So because it's like, okay, so MJF's the champion and Regal represents MJF in Chicago because MJF was not there filming the Von Erichs movie. Comes to Indianapolis and he's just standing there and he gets hit from behind by MJF. And it's kind of like, so now Regal gets stretchered out and that's the end. Boy, is that not Vince McMahon booking? That's how Vince did it, right? If you were finishing up in his company, you're gonna go to another company. Well, we're gonna humiliate you on the way out. And if that's the case, then boy, that's Vince McMahon 101. You stretcher that guy out that helped your company, was one of the best color analysts actually in your company for the one-offs that he was doing. He put together a Blackpool Combat Club, which was really cool. I thought it was different. It was great, a great assembly of talent. And now you just let him go out the door. 40 years in the business, bro. It's 40 years of experience. And you don't want that guy in your company? Okay. Yeah, let's stick with daddy ass. You're right.
Hey, they got Jeff Jarrett. They don't need Regal. But, like, Regal's been so, like, front and center so much. Like, it is very odd. And, like, to Gabe's point, like, if you're going to build Bryan defending his honor and then he's just not there, like, I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, at this point, somehow you extend it to February to when they have the blow off and he's there. But even that, like, Bryan's not going to go over. So do they do where, like, hey, if MJF beats Bryan, Regal never can come back to AEW?
Okay.
Like,
but you don't want to put yourself in that corner. Yeah, I don't know. You don't want to put yourself in that corner where you can never bring him back either. I don't know. I'm really curious to know if the details of whatever his contract looks like comes out, because earlier in the week, Meltzer was like, no, this isn't going to happen. He's got a 3-year deal. And then later in the week, Meltzer's like, well, something's going on. It's not clearly staying. He might be going. And then we get the reports that it's like an 8-month contract plus options. So I'd love to know what the details of his contract are. And I'd love to know why he doesn't want to stick around AEW. Like it seems like they have plenty of young people on the roster if that's what he wants to be around. They've got plenty of that. You got potentially an ROH TV deal coming down the pipe. Like, how can you not use William Regal, and how are you not doing everything in your power to make sure that this man who has been so integral to your main event booking since he arrived, and you're just going to let him walk out the door?
Well, I'll put it this way to you guys. It's like, so if you want to write him off TV because he had this injury sustained at the hands of MJF, you want to do that, that's fine. Write him off TV. But he should still help you in the back. Because if you still make him part of the storyline, as far as him being out there, I don't know, in a body cast or whatever, he was a baby face. He was a heel for 2 weeks and now turning into a baby face. That doesn't make sense either. Think about it. Like, you were just booing him because he screwed Jon Moxley, and now you have sympathy for him. Like, this is what we're talking about in the previous segment. No one has sustained heat. If you have any, it doesn't last long. So that's why It's like, I would just write him off TV, but I'd sign him to a 2-year deal. It's William Regal, for God's sakes. And actually, that's a feather in your cap if you're AEW, because now you have more experience. Someone that Triple H covets, no, he's in my company now. That's how a wrestling war works. You just don't give away 40 years of experience if that's going to be the case.
Yep. Other contract news, Dax Harwood in an interview with Sean Ross Sapp revealed that FTR's contracts are up April of 2023. He says they could take a break for a year from TV in order to rest their bodies and, quote, do things that make us happy and bring us joy.
Well, I mean, if they took a break from TV, would anybody notice?
That's a shot to the balls there.
I mean, they haven't been on TV anyway. Like, I will say this: if that's what they decide to do, I would not blame them at all. If they just decided that they didn't trust the way that WWE booked them, because the last time we saw them, they were doing the comedy shave your back stuff. If they say we don't trust them, books us, and they decide to go the Matt Cardona, we can delve and get, like, you know, me FTR couldn't get Matt Cardona over in the Indies. Like, they could do what Matt Cardona is doing, but for tag team wrestling in the independents, absolutely they could, because they're a bigger name and more people are behind them whenever they would start versus what Matt Cardona was at the beginning of what he's been able to build himself into.
They're doing it now. They teamed with Steamboat this past weekend. Like, they're doing that. They're going wherever they want and say, oh, this is fun. Let's do this.
You know what, guys? It'll be the first time I'm saying this on our show, but I think money-wise, it's the right time. But these two have grown up in the business at the wrong time for tag team wrestling. They have. WWE have the Usos, but no one's taking the championships off of them. And also, on top of that, there isn't a really strong WWE tag team division. You got two brands. And I can't give you 5 tag teams besides the New Day that seriously could beat the Usos for the championship. We talk about Roman all the time. Give me those sustained tag teams that, like, for sure, like, yeah, when they take on the Usos, they could get the championships off of them. It's always these makeshift tag teams. Hey, look at this. We're going to have, what was it supposed to be, like, Riddle,
Elias. Yeah, Monday.
RK Bro.
For the tag titles.
Oh.
Yeah,
nonsense,
that's right. Right? Yeah. Nonsense. And so the same thing with AEW. I heard Jim Ross on Rampage a couple weeks ago. Whoa, this company is wrestling rich with tag teams. So many tag teams, really? You have tag teams, but can you for sure say that you have a sustained roster of tag teams besides the Young Bucks, besides Death Triangle,
Lucha Bros,
Lucha Bros, that you could say for sure that they could win the tag team championships and have the kind of run that FTR has? See, I think that it's dangerous to say we're going to take some time away in a wrestling war, but if either side is not showcasing you, then maybe you should be in the Indies. You can rest up, have your own schedule, make $2 million in the Indies internationally and also domestically, and still have fun. At least you'll be able to wrestle. They can't even get on AEW TV.
Well, I mean, and the best things on AEW TV that they've done this year, it's not even it's the Dax, like, he has one of the matches, but he has put on really good matches with CM Punk, with Bryan Danielson. Like, they've given him an opportunity to showcase that he can wrestle, and to the shock of no one, he's delivered matches to the point where like CM Punk was championing this dude as wrestler of the year because of the matches and quality of matches that he was putting on as a Dax Harwood as the singles competitor that he is not, because he's a part of the most decorated tag team in professional wrestling and yet still cannot get television time as a tag team solo, just those two as a tag team on AEW TV. It's mind-boggling.
I mean, just last week, like Anthony Bowens of the Acclaim was on with us. You can check that on the podcast where he's like, oh yeah, like our paths have to cross with FTR at some point. They've been number one contenders for a while. Like, when your own guys are saying stuff like that, like, everyone is aware of how you're misusing FTR. Like, it's just weird to see.
Well, Gabe, what would you do and actually in that interview, I think Dax was confused. He says, I think that we're going to be finishing up soon.
Yeah, he said he thought they were going to be out this year. He thought they'd be done at the end of this month. And he's like, oh, April of 23.
So what would you do? If you're FTR, what would you do?
Yeah, I think I'd do the independent route, because I think, again, they're going to be top stars, and they could make enough money going that independent route, doing whatever they wanted to do, maybe appearing on New Japan Pro Wrestling and defending those tag team championships from time to time. And that's the only televised things, or regularly televised things, I guess I could say, that they do. But I think they could certainly, and that's, I think, what I would do, because it's WWE doesn't, as you said, WWE doesn't feature tag team wrestling. AEW does a terrible job of pretending that they care, but instead they now care about the trios championships more, because that's what the Elite are going after. So yeah, I think we're a tag team. We're not splitting up. We're going to go someplace else, and we'll figure it out, because we're big enough stars, because they are. That's the thing. They are big enough stars to go do that.
But can they do that and still be signed to AEW? Like, still cash that AEW check and basically do what they're doing now? Like, they're going to be at Wrestle Kingdom. Like I said, they teamed with Ricky Steamboat this past weekend. Like, they've taken on the Rock and Roll Express. Like, can't they just do this?
I think Tony Khan would like to lessen the independent dates of his wrestlers, which I find interesting, because they're not doing anything except wrestling on Wednesdays. They don't have house shows. So all I know is that the old school wrestlers say, we got to wrestle more to get better. And if you're just wrestling on Dark once every other week, if you're wrestling on Dynamite or Rampage every other week, because it's not weekly, it's every other week, then how do you get better? And then you wonder how come there's so many like issues with some of these matches, right? It's just like, because they don't get enough ring time.
Yep.
So
finally, news and notes. Fightful reporting that Randy Orton needed a fusion in his lower back. He is not expected to return anytime soon. He has been out since May.
Uh-oh.
It's a bummer, like, because Randy Orton could be one of those guys that could be heated up quickly enough, if he was healthy enough, to kind of fill the role and be one of those 5 guys that we're talking about of challenging Roman Reigns. But I mean, dude's been doing it for a long time, and yeah, I think you forget that with Randy, because he doesn't look like he's been that old. Maybe because he went with the shaved head and doesn't necessarily have any of the gray hair that's been coming in. But he still looks so good, and he was having so much fun doing the stuff with Riddle that I think you forget that he's been doing this for 20-plus years, and it's unfortunate that I think some of it's kind of starting to catch up to him. And I mean, if we're talking about a fused lower back, that to me, do we ever see Randy Orton wrestle again?
You never say never, right?
Yeah,
but you know what this means, guys. This means that he needs a new finisher. All those RKOs have caught up to him. One too many, and now he needs back issues. So he's gonna have to be a ground and pounder. He's gonna have to do like the calf crusher. He can't do those moves anymore. Like clearly he needs like a nice mat finisher. So it's like Hogan with the leg drop. If he didn't have as many leg drops, he'd still be wrestling today. That's why he's got no back now. Got no legs. He's dropped his ass on so many wrestlers for 30 years. Now he can't walk. New finisher.
Well, and it's not even that. It's the move that he used. Is the rope DDT can't be good for him either, because he's just throwing himself down on his back. And his 2 finishing moves, the 2 moves that Randy Orton is guaranteed to do every match, he's just throwing his back down and taking the back bump.
I mean, it's vintage Orton, though. You can't pass that up.
All right, Michael Cole. That's enough. Vintage Orton.
So we haven't seen it because Orton's been out that long. But does he yell vintage Orton without Vince in his ear?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that would be my inclination as well. I would think yes, but you never know.
Yes, but the only difference is now he was a star at Ohio Valley Wrestling. That's what Michael Cole would add now. He would just add the indie stuff. That's what he's allowed to do now. That pops the internet every time. Like, wow, he mentioned all Japan wrestling. He mentioned yeah, man. He does whatever he wants to. Now he's actually a full-fledged announcer that's giving you context and background. It's amazing how that works. So there you have it. Did you guys enjoy Survivor Series?
I did. I thought the War Games matches, and you knew there were going to be some big spots and some crazy spots because those were the rumors coming in because they wanted to be able to have highlights to be able to put together for packages going forward. So you see crazy things off the top, like the finish of the women's match with Becky Lynch dropping the leg. Speaking of that, from off the top of the cage through a table, kind of a cool spot. And the ending of the men's match was perfect. It was perfect. Absolutely loved the ending of the men's match.
Just so everybody could be on the same page. People wonder, would the bloodline be an issue? Not an issue. So it looks like everyone's together on the same page. I kept rewinding the men's match to find out what happened with Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. I'm like, did I miss like a chair shot to the ear, or did I miss? And I kept rewinding. I'm like, oh, you mean that punch to the ear? It messed up his hearing? Because that's the story that Roman Reigns was so pissed off in the back, like, this guy messed up my ear. This guy, he punched me in the ear. It's like, dude, it's War Games. And live rounds are going to happen. He didn't mean to do it.
Yeah, and I think the reporters, they talked about it. They were fine. Like, yeah, I think the booking in that match was great. Like, the show in general, like, there wasn't anything, like, talking about match of the week, like, I don't pick anything from that show. It's like, oh, this is my match of the week. But, like, yes, the end of the men's match, like, it was just great booking, great storytelling, just every part of that. Like, it was fun to see that play out.
I definitely would have enjoyed the ending of the triple threat match more if Theory wasn't involved, because again, the storytelling going on, like, of Theory winning the U.S. Championship after being a failed cash-in with the Money in the Bank, it just makes it all look so bad.
I would have preferred Theory not to win the championship, but that's the story that they're going with. I liked it. I didn't love it. I enjoyed Survivor Series, War Games. I think that everyone worked hard. It's just funny about Theory, right? Like, there's something sports entertainery that's still there about Theory. Like, Vince is not there anymore. Is this who you are? Is this, I mean, you're still going to do the WWE cadence of talking about, I'm the youngest guy that done this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I can understand you doing that a year ago, but is there more to him than just the staccato way of doing promos like they did under Vince? Like, I like to see if there's something different. If not, that sucks.
So, Brian, you teased at it. What do you guys have as your match of the week?
I mean, I'm going to last night, Dax versus Bryan. Like you talked about earlier, Gabe. Like, Dax doesn't win any of these matches, but every time he goes out there, like, it's a lot of fun. So I say that one. KO versus Jey Uso on Monday, I thought was like a really good match, and it's cool to see Jey spotlighted. And the other one, I just enjoyed it. I think it was just a different dynamic. Samoa Joe and AR Fox last night. Like, the little things, like Joe walking out of the way of like some of the top rope stuff, like, that was just entertaining to see those two. And like, Joe did a good job of making AR Fox look like legit as opposed to just a jobber going out there. That was a match I really enjoyed last night.
I've said this a long time about Samoa Joe. I feel he's just like the ultimate professional wrestler. Like, he's really good on the mic. He's really good in the ring. I've always loved Samoa Joe, and I'm glad he's getting showcased and he's calling himself the ultimate television champion since he has the TV title and the TNT title.
That was a title match last night, right?
Yep, TNT championship match.
Challenge.
AR Fox just got signed. Title match, huh?
Uh-huh. It was an open challenge. He jumped at it. He was first one there.
Terrible booking again. I don't even know who that is. But I saw him before he got officially signed, and so the ink's not even drawing the contract. Title match.
Uh-huh. You haven't been to enough pancakes and pile driver shows on WrestleMania weekends, and then you would know who AR Fox is, okay?
Oh man, like, if we end up going to WrestleMania in LA, how many of these shows are you dragging us to?
So many.
Oh my God, we're gonna be in El Segundo. We're gonna be just the dregs of society. Like, you know,
My people, I'm looking forward to it.
standing-
LA, here we come.
standing for 3 hours watching a match because there's no chairs.
Yep.
It's gonna be oh God.
Also, Rowitz can see his favorite intergender match of the year.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Just like all
Count
the
down
stuff
the days.
all the stuff that you can watch on Fight, but we got to see it live, of course. We want to just, and you know how these things go on WrestleMania weekend, though, right? It's like, you know, it like some of these shows are against WrestleMania.
Yeah. There's some years I'd rather see these indie shows than Mania. Like maybe I'll give Hunter a chance this year, but some of the Vince Manias, like give me the indie shows.
Oh my God! Like in some of these, and see, if you haven't been, I've read about these. I've never been. The idea that it's like, yeah, there's this show that's on Fight at midnight and another one at 3 a.m.
Yep.
It's just like, wait a minute, what do you mean there's a wrestling show at 3 a.m. sold out?
I'm not alone. I will tell the story. I forget what year it was. Mania was in Orlando. Went to Lakeland for the Ring of Honor show. So that ended like 11. Drove back to Orlando Highlight to see a 1 a.m. show. And in the crowd, coming from Ring of Honor, was Adam Cole, baby. So he's part of the crazies also. So there you go. I had newfound respect for Adam Cole that night.
If only we now had newfound respect for you. If only we had that for you, that really complete the story. But unfortunately, that's just not the way that this is going to turn out for you. Jay Hood, your match of the week.
The women's Raw War Games match I thought was very good, especially the ending. Started off slow. It's War Games, Bianca. Come on. This is what we're talking about, the lack of heat, right? Just like, it's moves. Great. But let's go. Like, let's throw some punches. Let's get us into it. But as the match progressed, more and more people were able to really get into it. And something else, too, about that, guys. I don't know if you noticed it or not. It really resonated with me how big and strong Rhea Ripley looked in the War Games. Mm-hmm. When she had her back turned, it gave me China vibes, right? Of like, my God, she's the most dominant woman in here. Like, I think War Games did so much for her. She just won a match on Raw we just saw as well against Mia Yim. And that's also on my list here. Yim and Ripley. I thought.
Don't you mean Minchin? Is her name Minchin? Or is she still called Mia Yim?
They said it's a nickname. And someone messed up on the web.
Yeah. It was so complicated. They were like, nah, let's go back to Mia Yim, where people
we really messed this up. Just call her Mia.
So I like that. I thought that Yim and Ripley had a really good match, but I was just impressed by Ripley in the cage. Just like, okay, she's a force when you see her in there. Like, we see Bianca and we see Asuka and these others, but when she's in there dressed in black, the black hair, it's like she's ominous, and it's like she's an attraction that you got to see. Never mind about the laughing on the apron all the time. She's turned into a sicko, and I think that's kind of cool. And I thought that once again, the 6-man tag delivered, I thought, for the main event on AEW Dynamite. They're not going to do it the same way every week. That was a little bit more of, all those guys all over the place. I had no problem with it. It's fine.
Yeah, starting with the brawl. Again, I think that was, hey, you're down 2-0, you got to do something desperate. So they just start it right out of the gate before you even get in the ring. You're not even ringing the bell. You're trying to wear down your opponent. And again, they're presumably going to have 7 of these. So we still have 4 more to go. To be able to present it so many different ways, it's a tip of the cap to those guys. But
just a little bit on that. Here's how you knew that the Elite were going to win. Callis at ringside. He's never there. It was desperate. He's like, we can't go down 0-3. I better get it to ringside to try to help.
Which they did a good job of pointing out on commentary. Like, usually he's up here bothering us, but he's down there. That's how important this thing is. My match of the week, I'm with you, Jay Hood. I loved the women's War Games match. Like you said, the start was a little bit, but like Rhea Ripley, like every time I see her wrestle, because she had the injury and was just more or less the mouthpiece for a little bit there of Judgment Day, like you kind of forgot how good she was as a wrestler. She's just trying to get, she's trying to bait all these men into hitting her all the time on Monday Night Raw. Like, oh, hey, you can't hit me. But like when she gets in the ring, yeah, she does seem like to be that dominant presence. If there's going to, like, if she's not the heel that ends up taking the championship off like a Belair, then Bianca's going to have a Roman Reigns type run. Because if it ain't her, I don't know who else it could possibly be.
Yeah. So there you have it.
There we go. That will do it for this week's version of GKW. There's only one pay-per-view in the month of December, so we're going to have a lot of other things to talk about. I know, Jay Hood, you mentioned we'll do an award show toward the end of the year, but make sure you tune in next week, Thursday night, right here across these same social media channels or through podcast, and that's how you listen to us. But we'll be back next Thursday.